Why use Barbarian mixes? A fair question with not a lot of obvious answers to it. If your mind is capable of any advanced level of thought, then you might have wondered to yourself why you would use a Barbarian mix over a normal potion. Chances are you thought about it for 0.6 seconds and wrote them off as dead content. I know I did the first time I discovered them. The thought that they might actually be useful somewhere never fully left my mind, however. I finally decided to bunker down and do some research to see if there's an actual reason to use them. It's time to buckle in, activate big brain mode, and get ready to hear a few compelling reasons of why you should use hipster mixes. Let's just get something right out of the way, shall we? For those of you that are not well educated, Barbarian mixes are 2-dose potions that restore 6 HP with each sip. Almost any regular potion has its hipster counterpart, but to create them yourself you must pay a visit to good Sir Otto at his grotto. Barbarian by day, emblem farmer by night, Otto gets quite lonely nowadays and forces conversations with strangers by locking useful content behind his text walls. You'll have to suffer your way through the Barbarian herb lore portion of training if you want to create these mixes for yourself. As to why mixes are considered dead content, well, the most glaring issue is that mixes have a maximum of 2 doses per vial. The obvious drawback to this is that more of your inventory will be taken up if you're trying to match the same number of doses as regular potions. But what if I told you that you're looking at this the wrong way? You must open your third eye, become woke. Make that 300 IQ realization that mixes aren't just potions, they're also healing. The most common realization amongst players I came across in my research is that when looking at maximizing healing and doses per inventory slot, you actually get more of both of them when using mixes. Even someone in the 50 to 100 IQ range can see that 2 prayer mixes equate to more healing and just as much prayer restore as 1 prayer potion and a shark. And that uses the same amount of inventory slots, my friend. God Ash has entrusted us with solving the mystery of Barbarian mixes. He's pleased with our ingenuity thus far, but we've only just scratched the surface. It's time to dive down that rabbit hole and perfectly segue into our first real reason to use Barbarian mixes over regular potions. It certainly was quite the pickle trying to think of situations that would always prefer mixes over potions. 2 general scenarios did stick out to me when I sat down and thought about it though, both of which basically revolve around Slayer and killing monsters. The first scenario involves being on a task where you have to kill a monster that has multiple attack styles that you can't safe spot or pray against all the incoming damage. A decent number of noteworthy monsters that fit this description include, but are not limited to, drakes, zygomites, worms, neckreels, and suquas. If your task is quick enough, or if you have a good idea of how often you have to tally out and resupply at the bank, having a prayer mix or mix to boost your stats often can help mitigate small amounts of damage you're receiving from the monster. It really boils down to if healing 6 HP with your regular mix cycle is enough health to keep you above the threshold of damage you're periodically taking from the monster. Also, maybe you have no guthins, no herb sack, no gem bag, really no reasons to live. If you get your inventory down to a science, then it's possible to bring less food and let the mixes do the healing for you, which opens up your inventory to hold more loot and possibly stay longer at your task. The second scenario I came up with in my university-funded research is when you take accidental hits while safe spotting. Even the most veteran Osrs player can become distracted while AFKing. A click in the wrong spot can equal some decent damage if you're not paying attention. It's possible to have your hardcore Iron Man disposed of by Hellhounds because you clicked out of your safe spot one too many times. Having mixes on a Hellhound or Demon task you plan on safe spotting can give you some peace of mind knowing you have at least some healing with you. Yes, bringing food is much more straightforward, but you end up using more inventory spaces bringing food and potions. And the whole point of using mixes is to save actual food for when you need it and getting by with mixes if the situation permits it. RuneScape is a vast game with a myriad of different events, scenarios, bosses, skills, collections, bots, exploits, and not safe for work art. Certainly some of the activities that you find yourself a part of on your travels could be a potential area in which mixes are a better pick over potions. Obviously, it's impossible to think of every single little spot they might be beneficial at, but the idea is to give you guys some examples and get the gears turning in your own heads on where you might be able to use mixes over potions. I can't take full credit for this, however. I did some brainstorming on my own, but the Osrs Reddit really did come through when I asked them for some insight. In most of these examples, it will really hinge on how long you can stay at the activity without having to resupply, and it's not a one-size-fits-all. Different players have different inventory requirements based off the stats they've trained and the gear they have available to them. Just because mixes might not work for you doesn't mean it wouldn't work for someone else at the same activity. It appears that boss inventory optimization is just absolutely wet and wild for some Barbarian mixes. King Black Dragon is an easier boss that requires you to bring a decent number of different potions. Depending on your combat skills, you might not be able to get that many kills in one trip. You might not be needing those 4-dose potions after all, little guy, so since you'll be taking damage in the encounter, and you might not be able to stay long enough for some 4-dose potions, it simply makes sense to bring Barbarian Mixes because you can mitigate some of the damage you're taking and save inventory for other items like more food, which in turn will let you stay even longer. I can say this confidently because this isn't my first time doing King Black Dragon. Turns out that sometimes a mix can be beneficial with just getting to a boss. A good example of this would be using a stamina mix on the way to Dagonoth Kings. It's quite a long path to take and the mobs can easily damage you if you don't remember to pray correctly on your journey there. Having a stamina mix will allow you to keep your run energy up and help keep you as close to full health as possible when you reach the Kings if you made some prayer mistakes along the way and got smacked by some crab boys. This same concept applies to the Orania altar. You need to drink stamina potions and keep your run energy up, and you take a small amount of damage over time that can be mitigated by drinking mixes. Sure, 6 health doesn't seem like a lot of healing per sip, but Barbarian Mixes aren't reserved for higher level accounts with a lot of health. It is very common for lower level accounts to train on rock or sand crabs. Crabs do take their toll on you over time. Trust me, I know. It's possible to fill your inventory up with mixes instead of food to stay longer at crabs depending on what your defense stat is looking like. Or maybe you want to start a new account. Maybe you want to be as Chad as possible and use super strength pots to kill cows and chickens because it helps you sleep at night. At this point in time, your account should only have around 10 health, so healing 6 HP with each sip could be a big yes for you. I believe this final reason will more likely be beneficial to Iron Men over regular accounts. In any case, training herb lore can take a really long time or is really expensive. Let's say you're an Iron Man that made an arbitrary number of 10,000 super attack potions. To the normie account, it would appear to be nothing more than something to throw on the GE. But to an Iron Man, you can see easy, juicy XP just sitting in the bank. Either roe or caviar is required to turn potions into mixes, and obtaining large amounts of roe and caviar is arguably easier to obtain than 10,000 herbs and ingredients to make more regular potions. I didn't look up the XP rates for crafting mixes, because I don't care, but if we use our example numbers, we can calculate that those 10,000 super attack potions work out to be 660k herblore XP overall. Now don't tell anyone I told you this, but it's actually possible to make a profit by making regular potions into Barbarian Mixes. I should warn you that it does not work for every mix, and you'll have to check the going rate on the GE at the time of making them. Also, be aware that they are usually not in high demand, and the listed price can be above or below where it says they are. Is it the fastest XP method? No. Is it competitive GP per hour? No. Herblore is definitely one of the more expensive skills to buy in RuneScape. It's nice to know that you can opt to have a slower XP rate of training, but perhaps make a little bit of cash in the process. I have one final reason as to why you might use Barbarian Mixes. I asked a real-life female who has absolutely no RuneScape knowledge whatsoever on why someone would use a Barbarian Mix. I mean, I think it's case closed. The proof is in the pudding, boys. The proof is in that pudding. As I said earlier, Barbarian Mixes really come down to an individual account level. Mixes could be great for certain situations on certain accounts, but really not worth it on others. It's safe to say I didn't think of every reason to use Barbarian Mixes, so if you have any compelling reasons of your own, then let me know about it. I'm always looking for knowledge that makes me the smartest RuneScape player in the room. In all seriousness, thank you guys so much for watching. It does mean a lot to me. Now, if you have any burning questions about Barbarian Mixes, or RuneScape in general, feel free to ask me. It's very easy to answer everyone on YouTube since my channel is so small, but if not, I also have Twitter, I got a clan chat, I have pretty much anywhere whatsoever I'll be able to answer you guys. But that's all for now. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one.